Before watching this video, please note that English isn't my native language, so at some point, when you hear me say hazel eyes, it is because I couldn't find a better word to express the color of Powder's eyes. I know it isn't brown, but it is more gray greenish blue, or hazel blue like this picture, than it is fully blue like Jinx has later on. Thank you for your comprehension, and hope you'll enjoy this video. Hi guys. So I'm back again to expose some stuff I found regarding the gemstones and the arcane. Focusing on the magic side of it this time, as I discovered some pretty interesting things that were subtextual in the show, but weren't clearly said by one of the characters. We'll discuss lots of my personal theories in this video, but what I found is in my opinion quite important in the show, even if it's only implied, and not all of it is part of the theory, most are just raw observations that perhaps will interest you. I'll let you judge by yourself, but I know the last part of this video will definitely make the Time Bomb fans rejoice once again. Just be a bit patient and try enjoying this video entirely since it is mostly about Jinx. Also, for those of you who know me by now, you know I always give important information at the end to reward the watchers, so if you feel bored at some point, try skipping parts, and you'll have the best takes at the end. In this video we'll talk about magic, and how the magic in Arcane refers to what we nowadays call modern magic. Subtextual facts about it in the show could explain the changing of Powder's eyes to the blue we knew Jinx with, and could also imply some pretty crazy stuff about Jinx and Vi. As some of this will be observations and reflections only, you might wonder why I'm pointing it out, but you will understand with my theory at the end why this might be important. If what I discovered is true, then it could mean Jinx's character will be taken to a whole new perspective for Season 2, and the more I analyze Arcane's first promos, and the new Jinx content in the league's lore, the more I think it could be a path Riot would like to take Jinx and Vi's story, and more generally, Arcane's story too. Because I believe they will want to surprise us once again, and therefore lead Season 2 in a way we wouldn't be expecting even after all those months of theorizing about it. So let's start with the Arcane. To those of you who didn't know it by now, the word arcane is an old French word to say magic, especially when talking about runes and symbols like the ones in Jace's book, and that are still used nowadays in modern magic. In tarot decks, which are mostly used to read the future or resolve a problematic situation, the cards are also called arcanes, with each having its own meaning and symbolism. The most common expression with this word is to talk about the arcanes of the universe, which would define the laws of the universe, its physics and how it works, which is exactly what modern magic is about. It is about knowing these rules from deep inside your core, and using it to set intentions and make things go the way you want them to, by using the energy lying within yourself and the world around you. I saw a lot of people wonder about that scene between Jace and Mel in episode 6, and not understanding how deep and meaningful it was, especially when it was linked to a universe and galaxy theme, and to the one with Viktor dying, and the Jinx rebirth scene with Silco. I have described my thoughts and theory about it in the previous video. I advise you to have a look at it, if you have time. It might help you understand this theory even more, but we'll skip it here since this video will mainly focus on Jinx, the Hexstones and the Arcane. The magic in Arcane is at the center of everything, but yet, it held like a second role in Season 1 behind the characters and their personal stories, and times where it was mentioned were only mysterious or subtextual.
No. Magic is far too dangerous in the wrong hands.
We have Heimerdinger repeating that it must not fall into the wrong hands, and we know somehow that it's exactly what happened. But what if it was meant to be this way, because the Arcane is meant to go to the people who can manipulate them? If you wonder where I'm going with this, bear with me. Because there are important stuff all throughout the video which contains many thoughts and informations, all entangled together, to form one and only theory that will unfold at the end. I started looking up the Hexstones when I had this urge to understand why Jinx's eyes turned to blue, when it was hazel back then when she was Powder. And up until now, it is for me the biggest mystery of Arcane, if my theory isn't true of course. Perhaps she just grew up having blue eyes as it often happens for a child, to have its eyes change color throughout the years. But as I was trying to figure out the reason or the exact moment her eyes turned blue, I discovered even more interesting things regarding the Arcane and the gemstones themselves. Before you say anything, I don't agree with people saying that Jinx's eyes changed color the moment she looked at Silco. Her eyes were way too red with tears to see it turning blue, and I have improved and looked at the scene a million times to try and see it like people did, but I can assure you, there was no such thing as her eyes turning blue in that moment. It was only foreshadowing her shimmer eyes, as the slight blue in it mixed with the red gave off a purplish pink color. So I thought her eyes turning blue could have been at the moment she was thrown away from the building, as she touched the magic sparkles around her, but her eyes weren't blue in the next scene with Vi, so it wasn't at that moment either. I then thought to myself, okay, so let's assume her eyes turning blue did really have something to do with the hexstones. Let's analyze all the times she interacted with them. How many stones were there in that monkey exactly? Did she use them all that night, or did she keep some that she might have used during the time lapse, and that could explain the changing color of her eyes? I thought that if she did, there could have been a missing piece that would have made us understand how her eyes turned hazel to blue. But after looking it up closely, I saw that she used all of the stones, or maybe not. There were 6 stones in total in Jay's safe. 1 fell out of her pocket and exploded the building. So Patter was left with 5 stones, but also, please note that when she's having her first breakdown and throws away her case, the stones fell out and only 4 stones were shown on screen, possibly implying that Patter gave 1 stone away. I believe that at this moment, after she heard Milo and Vi's talk, she might have gone to Echo, to whom she might have shown the stones, or perhaps, give him one, that Echo might have gotten rid of after he heard what happened at the old cannery next to the docks. It's a theory I had months ago, and that I talked about on Twitter, seeing how Echo was intrigued by the stabilized gemstone years later, but we'll just skip it here. For now, just know that, since how only 4 stones were shown on screen, when Patter was made to have 5, we can't know for sure how many she had when she went to rescue Vi and the rest of her family. It was either 4 stones, or 5. As she sets her bomb, we can see the monkey's head is glowing, showing that she has put stones in its head. She puts 2 others in his stomach, and 1 stone is attached on the front. So, that leaves us either with 1 stone, or 2 stones. Because we don't know if there is 1 stone in the monkey's head, or if there's 2. If only 1 stone was introduced in the monkey's head, then that means Patter still had 1 stone after the bomb went off. And perhaps, that might be linked to that Echo Jinx flashback they deleted from episode 7, where Amanda Overton told me on Twitter that something heartbreaking and brutal happened. Perhaps, Patter set up a bomb once again with the remaining stone, and that's what made her eyes turn to blue for good, but that is just a theory of course, which isn't the reason I think it has turned blue, so let's just skip it from there, and theorize about it in the comments. For now, there is no possibility for us to know if there was 1 or 2 stones in the monkey's head, and therefore if Patter still had 1 remaining stone after the bomb went off. In my opinion, her eyes turned blue because of the hexstones, yes. But like it was foreshadowed when she was a child, when she looked at it nearly mesmerized, I believe that it was because she was drawn to it, as if it was calling her, unlike it did to anyone else. I think Patter was able to sense the magic emanating from it. And I believe her eyes turned the same blue as the magic stones over time, because I believe Jinx was born with the arcane talents. Let me explain why I think that way, and what I've discovered about the stones, their magic and how it reacts to Jinx especially. Actually, the Arcane is a character of its own throughout the whole show. I believe it will be at the center of Season 2 as it stayed deliberately in the background throughout Season 1, but it will come out of the shadows in the upcoming season, because now, it has literally fallen into the wrong person's hands like Heimerdinger said it shouldn't. Whether it's Jinx or Viktor, we'll have to wait to see I guess, but at first I didn't think Jinx would want anything to do with that gemstone after the end of Act 3, but seeing how Arcane's teaser was teasing a Piltover explosion, the Hex Monument and some other stuff I don't want to spoil, it's pretty clear to me that Jinx's mind will both be at the mercy of her own demons and PTSD, as much as the Arcane. Just like Viktor has been, and perhaps, will be in Season 2 too. Anyway, it's just some thoughts. I have many on the matter, even complete opposite ones, so we can still discuss all of this in the comments, but please don't get offended if you think otherwise. I am always open to any discussion and convergence of opinions. So let's go back to the Arcane for now. In modern magic, everything is about intentions. Whether you want to manifest something with prayers, offerings or good actions, the thing that matters is the intention you have and how clear your mind is when you're setting it. In Arcane, it's exactly the same. Jace did not crack the runes to create the portal. He didn't understand them to begin with, to know exactly what runes to pick to create, or make anything happen. His researches surely helped, but we can see he tries and fails, so it isn't his knowledge that made it work. No, the moment he manages to create the portal is the moment he sets his intention into it. He takes a deep breath, clears his mind, and puts all his trust in himself and his will into it as he recalls the exact memory of what he wants to see happening in front of him. And it does. The magic sees his mind and answers his intention. which is exactly what happens with Jinx later on too. See for yourself. What Jace wanted to create was a magic portal like he saw when he was a child. He didn't know which runes to use. He didn't know how it worked either. He first tries, and it doesn't work, until he breathes in and calms himself, and then it happens. It is the Arcane in the Hexstone that felt his intention and adapted itself to it, creating exactly what he had in his mind. A teleportation gate just like he wanted, which is far different from the magical portal he experienced when he was a child. What he wanted was to create a gate for Piltover and the other cities, and the magic answered his wish. On the other hand, we have Viktor, later on, who creates a device capable of many combinations of runes, as he tries to bend it to his will, but he never managed to crack it. That is because his intention was to crack it. His intention wasn't clear, as he was not doing this for the purpose he thought he was doing it. What he truly wanted was to understand how the magic worked, was to crack its core and its secrets. But that is the thing with magic. It lies within oneself, not the opposite. What Viktor needed to understand was himself, his own intention, his own wish, and, of course, have his mind cleared of negative thoughts while setting it, which he didn't have. Because he was too frustrated, troubled and obsessed with that magic he couldn't seem to comprehend, which, as a scientist, but also because of his declining health, frustrated and infuriated him. Funny thing is that the depths and power of magic lies entirely in oneself's trust. Which is exactly what Viktor says to Jace when he prevents him from killing himself.
I simply believed in myself.
But the rest of the show, seeing his failure to crack the magic core, shows us the opposite. Viktor did not have the required faith that was needed for the magic to work for him. And that is to me, the Viktor contradictory arc, as every single character in Arcane has a light and good side, opposite to a dark and bad one. Viktor, by saving Jace, breathed his faith and trust into him, and as Jace got more and more confident and trusted his own abilities thanks to Viktor's support and trust in his research, Viktor, on the other hand, started embracing his fall. Back to the Arcane. Jace and Viktor didn't really comprehend how the runes nor the magic worked, but still, they somehow managed to use it, even if they didn't know the depth of it, while Jinx, on the other hand, understood right away what it was, as she seemed capable first of reading those runes, but mostly comprehend them. She understood right away that it was a gateway to another realm, not just a single teleportation gate, when Jace and Viktor didn't get, but that was exactly what it was.
Kind of mathy, magic-y gateway to the realm of EBGBs.
Jinx saying this is so funny yet geniusly thought of. Because seeing League of Legends lore, this is exactly what it is. A magic-y gateway to the realm of EBGBs. Whether she said it as an Easter egg to make League players laugh, or if she truly understood it as a mystery, but she was anyhow capable of understanding that magic was about dimensions and universe, and managed to crack it on her own. But I think there is way more to it than just Jinx being a Zonai genius, and brilliantly competing with Piltover's most intelligent scientists. Before going on with this part, please note that if you disagree with me on this, it's totally fine, but if you think that is the theory, know that it is not. The most important part is what I discovered about the gemstones, and it comes just after this, so you can still skip parts if you disagree with this, but please stick to the end, because the gemstone part is really interesting, and might blow your mind, because it is real observations, and not only theory. So now let's look into Jinx's attempts to crack the gemstone. Same as for Jace, the first attempt is a failure, which is mostly because of the broken prototype she used, but also because of her traumatic memories that came back to her as her mind was too clouded by fear to set a clear intention. Like I showed in my Arcane thread, Jinx tried acting confident while she talked to Clagger and Milo, but her features clearly showed she was feeling insecure and terrified by that magic stone, as it was reminding her of her past mistakes and traumatic memories. But the second time she cracked it, I noticed something way more interesting about how it worked out for her. When Jace managed to create the gateway, he had a device that was controlling the runes, as he was trying to pick the right runes to make it work. But like I explained before, what made it work was his intention, as he was not really the one picking the right runes, but it was the Arcane itself that set the runes to make it happen. Jinx, on the other hand, has made a copy of the device that gives the gemstone enough power to be activated, sure, but that is all. She did not have a device to control the runes. We can clearly see that she has crafted runes on the device, as she seemingly knew exactly what runes to use. As her mind was clearer now that Silco helped her bury powder and she felt more strong and assured as ever, she was entirely focused and sweating for that goal. Creating a weapon to make Piltover pay, which was one of her biggest wishes since she was a child and is literally her core. As she sets her intention into it, she manages to make it work, and unlike Jace, doesn't even have the need to control the runes. Just like the wizard we see in Jace's memory, the runes come flying around her, reacting to her intention, and perhaps, to the magic inside her. When you look at this scene in slow motion, you'll see that Jinx has only crafted a few runes on her device, and just uses an activator to power the magic, and as she does, runes appear and come flying around the device then around her, just like it did with the magician. You'll also see that the magic emanating from the stone turns the page of the book, switching it to the exact page Viktor was interested in the first time he came across Jace's book. It seemingly is the way to open the magic portal, as the magic inside the gemstone seems to be having its own mind and is aiming towards that goal, and on that page, we can see it is also the pattern that appears on Fishbones at the end. Another theory I have is that Jinx's attack on the console at the end of episode 9 might just have opened that portal we saw in the show premiere teaser, as she seemingly was the one to understand exactly what runes needed to be crafted to do so. Perhaps, it is one way Arcane Season 2 might begin, with Jinx having created yet another bigger chaos than we thought. So, we have the magic reacting to Jinx, runes flying around her, and turning the page of the book to show her exactly what she needed to know for her ultimate weapon to work, as it was answering her wish and intention. As I said, the only times the arcane is mentioned in the show is always in mysterious or subtextual ways, between some Heimerdinger wisdom words and warnings, and there is this time, when the counselor tells Jace that arcane powers can't be controlled, and that it is something that you are born with.
Arcane talents are something you're born with. They can't be fabricated.
On the contrary of Jace, Jinx did not only crack the magic with her will, the magic reacted to her the same way it did for the wizard in Jace's memory, but that is just some observations and a theory, of course. Which isn't why I think Jinx might be born with the arcane talents. There's something way more interesting that makes me think of it, and that adds more thoughts to this theory. That was not the only time the magic inside the gemstone reacted to Jinx in a very particular way, unlike it did with others. Now, I guess you guys surely noticed that the stones sometimes had pink colors inside it. That is only when Jinx holds it. The stone reacts to Jinx, as pink is Jinx's color, but not only does it become pink when she holds it. It reacts to her every feeling, emotions, and every single one of her thought. And changes color throughout her every mental state, as she's fighting that duality inside her throughout the whole show. See for yourself. As powder, the stone was always blue, which is the normal color of the magic, but it is also powder's color. But later on, as Jinx, it has pink stains when she holds it. Until she learns Vi is alive and hesitates on becoming powder again, and perhaps letting go of the Jinx she feels she's become. At that moment, the gemstone turns back to blue, as she lights up the flare with the hope of reuniting with her loved ones. As she accepts her past and wants to forsake her perception of Jinx, the stone reacts to her thoughts and lets go of the pink with which it was stained until then. As Jinx feels betrayed by everyone and decides to become Jinx again, the stone turns back to pink once again. Do you think that is all? I'm not kidding. Let's look at the chronology together. The first time we see the stone in Act 2 is before Jinx steals it.
Now, it finally can. A Hextech gemstone.
Jace is doing his speech, and we know Jinx is on her way to explode some Piltover buildings to make a distraction before she steals the stone. Didn't you notice something? The normal color of the stone is blue. But at that moment, while Jinx was probably already outside setting her trap for the enforcers, look at the pink appearing in the stone behind Jace. The magic inside the stone feels Jinx's presence and slightly starts becoming pink in reaction. After that, Jinx holds the stone to Silco. When she holds it, it is pink. When he holds it, the color has turned back to normal blue. Later on, Jinx tries to crack the hexstick for the first time. The stone has pink inside it one more time. After that, when Jinx interrogates Chuck, it's fully pink again, as it always is when she holds it. So, each time Jinx held a stone, or was around it, it had her pink color in it as the magic was responding to her. That is until she learns Vi is alive, and she starts doubting the perception of Jinx she's created to bear with the fact she wasn't that weak child anymore. The moment she goes up to light up the flare, she's shown looking at the stone, and she hesitates between the stone and the flare that would call up her sister. At that moment, she's still Jinx. So the stone still has pink stains in it. As she makes her decision, she embraces her traumatic memories and past self and wants to reunite with it. After lighting up the flare, she looks at the stone again, which has fully become blue again, as this was powder lighting up the flare, not Jinx. When Vi hugs her, the stone is shining blue and is brighter than ever. That is until we see Echo holding it later. Do you know what's funny? When Echo has the stone in the Firelight's hideout, it is again fully blue when it is stored in his C drive tech, but has a little spark of pink in it. But when he holds it later on, it is fully blue until the exact moment when the thought of Jinx comes flying in the conversation.
That's why. We could beat Silco with this.
He holds it up to his eyes, and it then fully becomes pink for him too. I posted a theory on Twitter the other day and told people that I knew that exact moment had Echo thinking about Jinx. When he said they could beat Silco with this, that's what I meant. I know some people might think his words could imply he wants to beat Silco because he's floating the lanes with Shimmer, and I know everything about Echo's character isn't all about Jinx, but the way the stone turned pink as his eyes showed pain and longing proved that he was thinking about her at that moment when the thought of making an hexstick device to be able to beat Silco came to his mind. It showed that the real reason behind his grudge against Silco was because he feels Silco's the one to have taken Powder away, and not only because he wants to save Zahn from Silco's influence. His thoughts, feelings and intention, as he was holding the stone, was directed towards Jinx, so the stone took Jinx's colors once again and became pink. That is also why I believe he was the one to have given her back the gemstone, because as he was fighting her to get it back, he then recognized Powder, and didn't see the point in giving back the gemstone to Piltover, when he had just been shot and betrayed by enforcers once again, and didn't want to lose Jinx over it, since she was the reason for him to do all that in the first place. At that moment, the stone had turned back to blue. If Jinx was the one to have taken back the gemstone, it would have been pink when Silco found her, as she was the one holding it, and she had made the decision to stay on Silco's side when she attacked that bridge. When Jinx holds the stone when Silco finds her, it is turned to blue once again, as both her and Echo were holding it and they both knew that it was Powder lying there on that ground, and not Jinx. Therefore, there was no pink in the stone at that moment. So that color thing in the stone doesn't have anything to do with the magic lying inside the person, it just reacts to feelings, thoughts and the person's intentions, since the color didn't only change when Jinx held it. Unless Echo has the arcane talents too, and that would explain the fact they're both Zonai geniuses, but I believe the way Powder was attracted to the stone from day one, then her eyes changing color, which is the same color of her hair, when there is this enemy line in the game that clearly says it's strange, because he never saw anyone with that particular hair color before, could be because she is from some place elsewhere. Of course that would mean she isn't Vi's blood sister, like one famous theory on the internet says, but I didn't believe that at first until I saw Arcane's script author answer the question, are Vi and Jinx siblings? Vi. They have the same parents. Well, having the same parents isn't like being blood related, especially when Arcane authors have been repeating again and again that this show is all about found family. We know Amanda Overton is really careful with her words, so why not just answer yes to that question? Not to mention that Vi's original lore talked about her being in an orphanage before founding Shelter in the Last Drop with other kids, so perhaps both her and Powder are from an orphanage and grew up like sisters, but aren't blood related. Perhaps we will never know, and it is something they will deliberately keep silenced, since they love to see their fans theorize about these kind of stuff, but it is one of my many theories that I have on Arcane, Vi, Jinx, and Echo, and I hope you enjoyed hearing about it, and will tell me your thoughts in the comments. To those of you who stayed until this part of the video, here are some more thoughts and observations about the gemstone and the end scene of Act 3. All these things I've realized about the stone changing color are real observations, it's not just theory. Of course it could still be an animation mistake, and I could be wrong about this, but let's consider this was a conscious choice of the animation team and the authors, which to be completely honest with you, I think it was, since I believe there is nothing, absolutely nothing they did in this show, that hasn't been discussed and thought of fully for hours, and without second thought on it. And seeing what I personally know about modern magic, and how Arcane fits this mystical science so well, I also believe that the color of the stone has yet another meaning, if we link it to magic. Calling it a gemstone all throughout the show, when they could have employed the word hexstone like its original name, should have spoken to some of you. As it is commonly used in modern magic, each gemstone has a meaning, a power, and a signification. The blue gemstones, whether it's fluorites, agaves, blue amethysts or blue quartz, every blue gemstone that comes to my mind, are linked to peacefulness, innocence, soothing traumas or improving mental health. The gemstones linked to the pink color, like pink moonstones, pink opal, kunzite, phosphosiderite or the most known pink quartz, are also all used to soothe emotional trauma, instability, stress, healing process, and most of all, affection and love. I could talk about gemstones and their significations for hours, as this is literally my work domain, but I couldn't help but realize the moment Echo held that gemstone, and it also became pink, was strongly implying his feelings for Jinx as he was thinking of her in that moment. Comparing it to the moment Jinx holds it in her workshop, and it's pink too, and when she gives it to Silco, and he holds it, it then becomes blue again, and when every other character holds it there is no strain of pink in it. The stone being pink, only when Jinx and Echo hold it, definitely has a meaning. And I believe it to be because they're both longing for love and affection, deep inside their core. Also, I would like to add something more regarding the end scene. I realized during the tea party that the gemstone had turned back to blue, and that kind of caught me off guard, as that was the scene in which I would have believed it to be the pink ear, as Jinx was embracing the fact that she was definitely a Jinx. Or so we thought. When I saw this, I thought that all this theory could be delusional, and that people would come at me, because that end scene proved it wrong, but then, I checked some other times we saw the gemstone to which I didn't pay attention before, like the time where Echo holds it, and the fight after the lighting the flare scene. And I saw that even there, in those slight, but important moments where they showed the gemstone on purpose, as they wanted us to notice it kept changing colors, made me think that my theory was pretty much valid, as there was definitely something going on with the gemstone's color. See the moment Jinx drops the gemstone by instance. Before lighting the flare, she looks at the gemstone, and we can see the gemstone still has some Jinx pink in it, as she was still feeling unsure about what she was about to do. She was still hesitating between what Silco taught her in the lake, and the fact he lied to her, and Vi was back perhaps not for her, and that she might have been that liar Jinx who taught herself she was. See my Jinx diary analysis video, if you don't see what I mean. She needs to test Vi on that promise she made, and therefore, makes her decision and lights up the flare. As the flare burns out, and she believes Vi won't come for her, she throws off the flare and gets enraged, and as she looks at the gemstone again, it slightly starts becoming pink again. As Vi arrives and hugs her, Jinx is caught off guard. She lets go of the gemstone, and as powder in her awakens for good, the gemstone has completely turned back to blue, and is brighter than ever. Later on, when Caitlyn arrives and Jinx feels betrayed again, when you improve colors during the fight, you see that the magic starts reacting to her feelings. When Caitlyn and then later on the Firelight Girl holds the gemstone, it is blue again. It is only reacting to Jinx. After that, we have a change in color again, when Echo thinks about Jinx like I showed earlier. Later on, as Silco finds Jinx on the bridge, the stone is back to blue. This is not something they haven't thought of. I believe they knew exactly what they were doing. If so then, why did the gemstone not have traces of pink in the end scene, when it was the scene where it should have been the most likely to have pink stains since it's the scene where Jinx is showing off her crazy act the most?
What did you do?
Well, I believe that like many of us thought, all this end scene was a test for Vi, and even if she asked her where she should sit like she asked her to choose between Powder or Jinx, I believe Jinx already had made her choice. In that scene, when she was acting the craziest and showing up her Jinx act, it was actually pretty much Powder's last attempt at making peace with her past. Thus the stone being blue. Jinx wanted to be herself, whoever that might be. Whether it was Powder or Jinx did not matter, all she wanted to see was if Vi and Silco would accept her as she was, or if they'll forsake her. What mattered was that she didn't want to be the Powder from the past, as Powder was weakness and traumatic memories for her, and she didn't want to be the Jinx she thought and felt like she was either. What she somehow embraced, by sitting in that chair, was the person she was at that moment, having forsaken the past, and not wanting to make the same mistakes again, and therefore, choosing to part ways with Vi too. The stone going from blue to pink throughout the whole show was showing the duality of her mind, and like I explained in my Arcane and Time Bomb thread, Jinx's duality is expressed up onto every single of her feature and expression, as even her face is always parted in two different expressions and traits, as to show the duality inside her thoughts, mind and feelings. The stone at the end has regained its original blue color, because Jinx is done with questioning herself about who she is, or who she should be. And she has decided not to bury Powder anymore, but embrace her as she was part of herself from the very beginning. She has chosen to be her, whoever that might be, whatever the outcome, and whether the world would accept her or not.
Love me like you used to. Even though I'm different.
Therefore, the magic answered her core, and the gemstone has stopped expressing her conflicted mind by turning into pink, as she's got her mind set now. She has chosen to be herself, even if that meant losing Vi in the process. As Silco proved her his loyalty in his last words, she decided to prove hers back by fulfilling his wish, and the wish she had to make Piltover pay, since she was a child. Staying true to herself, and not wanting to please anyone, just to be loved like she used to do all her life. And thus, parting ways with Vi, whom she believes will never accept her as she is now. Thanks guys for staying until the end. Please let me know what you think of this theory. I'd love to discuss your thoughts and impressions about it. See you soon for more edit videos and theories. I'll soon come up with new analysis and edits on Arcane.